Hello, everyone. Welcome to a story that will take you on a journey of courage, hope, and transformation. Today, we follow Ryan, a young villager who faces mysterious warnings, ruthless enemies, and life-changing decisions, all to save his village and bring hope to everyone around him. If you love heartfelt stories that the whole family can enjoy, stick around. Make sure to subscribe, like, and share this story with your friends and family. Let's keep the spirit of hope alive together. Now let's dive into Ryan's journey. The night had grown deep. Ryan was sitting alone in his room. Outside, the wind was blowing hard. Tree branches tapped against the window, and the whole house felt as if it were breathing. On Ryan's desk lay an old notebook open, the one where he used to write his thoughts and dreams. But tonight felt different. There was an unnamed depth in the air, as if a hidden secret was drawing near. Suddenly, the room fell silent. The wind stopped. The window went quiet. Then he heard it. A voice so soft, so mysterious, that Ryan's hair stood on end. "Ryan!" He quickly turned around. The room was empty. "Who's there?" Ryan whispered, but no reply came. Then the voice came again, this time a little closer. "Your life is going to change tomorrow." Ryan's heartbeat quickened. He stood up and scanned every corner of the room. The door was shut. Darkness lay beyond the window. But the voice didn't feel human. It felt as though someone had spoken directly into his heart. A faint glow spread across the room, and Ryan saw an image form before him. It was like a window into the future. He saw that the next day at school, a boy would be bullied and mocked by everyone. No one would stand by him. Everyone would laugh. The voice spoke again. "This will happen tomorrow. You will see it. The question is, what will you do?" Fear filled Ryan's eyes, but somewhere inside curiosity stirred. I always stay quiet. What can I do?" Ryan said silently in his heart. The voice seemed to answer him. "One step from you can change everything. Tomorrow you must decide. Will you stay silent or stand with the truth?" The light vanished, and the room sank back into darkness. Ryan sat down, his hands damp with sweat. That night was the longest of Ryan's life. He didn't sleep. Every moment he kept thinking about what he would do when tomorrow came. By morning he had made his decision. This time he would not stay silent. The morning sun was rising, but the mysterious whisper of the night still echoed in Ryan's heart. He looked into the mirror. His eyes were red and tired, as if he hadn't slept for days. Was it just a dream? Ryan asked himself. But dreams aren't this real, not this detailed, and why did he still feel this strange weight in his chest? He sat at the breakfast table and glanced at his mother. "What's wrong, Ryan? Are you okay?" she asked gently. "Yeah, I just couldn't sleep last night." But deep inside he felt like he was lying. He couldn't tell anyone that he had seen a glimpse of the future. People would laugh, maybe even make fun of him. On his way to school, Ryan's heart kept pounding at every turn. Would that scene really happen today? Would that boy really be the target of everyone's jokes? And if it did happen, would he do something about it? As soon as he entered the classroom, he saw Tom sitting in the corner, the same boy he had seen in his dream. Tom was always quiet, and most of the time other kids laughed at him. Ryan's mind replayed that scene again. The laughter, the noise. Class began. Everything seemed normal, but Ryan's heart was trembling. Then came the moment he had been waiting for during the break. Some kids started making fun of Tom, pulling his bag and knocking his books onto the floor. Ryan's breath caught. It was the exact scene he had seen the night before. Two voices started fighting inside his head. "Stay quiet, this isn't your problem." "No, this is the moment to do something." "If you don't do it today, you never will." Ryan's hands were shaking, his heart racing. He stood up but sat back down again. Inside him, fear and curiosity were locked in a strange battle. Could an ordinary boy really change everything? Was he ready to stand up in front of everyone? What if they laughed at him too? When he saw the tears welling up in Tom's eyes, Ryan felt a sharp pain in his heart. At that moment, it felt as if that mysterious voice was whispering right next to him. Your decision will shape the course of your life. Ryan took a deep breath. He was scared, but now he knew what his next step had to be. Today, he would not stay silent. That day, Ryan tried to steady the pounding in his chest as he stood in the classroom. Tom's fallen bag and books were still scattered on the floor, and the kids were laughing. Some of them were even recording videos on their phones. This was the very moment he had seen in his dream, but in the dream he had done nothing, just watched. Ryan felt himself shrinking into a corner. What if I say something and everyone makes fun of me? What if I stay silent and this keeps happening again and again? At that moment, he realized this wasn't just Tom's test. It was his own. This decision could change his future. Ryan closed his eyes and took a deep breath. The whisper from the night echoed in his mind again. Your steps are what write your destiny. Suddenly, he stood up. The room went silent. Everyone stared in surprise. The Ryan who always stayed quiet had just stood up. "Stop it!" His voice rang through the classroom. For a few seconds, everyone froze. Then one boy smirked and said sarcastically, "Oh, here comes the hero?" But today, Ryan had more courage than fear. He stepped forward, picked up Tom's books, and handed them back to him. "You all can laugh if you want, but this isn't right." The words were simple, but they changed the atmosphere of the room. The kids who had been laughing stopped for a moment. Some looked down, while others shrugged as if it wasn't a big deal. But Ryan knew this moment wasn't small. It was the first real decision of his life. For the first time, he had stood for what was right despite his fear. Tom smiled softly and said, "Thanks." It was just one small word, but for Ryan it meant everything. After that day, Ryan felt a strange strength inside him. It was as if he had discovered who he really was. This decision was small, but it had planted a seed in Ryan's heart that would grow into a great tree in the days to come. That night, as Ryan lay in bed, he felt a peaceful calm inside. Maybe I really can change something. That thought lit a lamp of hope in his heart. When Ryan came home from school that day, he went straight to his room. He sat by the window and stared outside for a long time. Clouds drifted across the sky, and the soft golden light of evening filled the room. In Ryan's heart there was a strange mix of peace and restlessness. He thought, everything happened exactly as I saw in my dream. But this time I made a different choice, and the outcome changed too. Can the future really be changed? The thought shook him to his core. If the future can be changed, then every moment is precious. Time isn't just something that passes, it's a force that can shape who we become. Ryan remembered moments from his past when he had stayed silent and let opportunities slip away. The days when he had let someone fall and said nothing. Those memories had always weighed on him, but today's small decision had somehow lightened that weight. It felt as though time itself was teaching him that every moment opens the door to the next one. Even if the past is full of mistakes, the future can still be changed. You just have to take the right step. Lost in thought, Ryan opened his diary and for the first time wrote something down. Today I saw time change. I learned that the future is still being written, and I am one of its authors. As he wrote that line, he smiled and put the pen down. Now, time was no longer just something that passed him by. It was an opportunity. An opportunity to make better choices, to break his fears, and to be a light for others. That night, he heard the mysterious whisper again, but this time he wasn't afraid. It seemed to say, time is not your enemy, it is your companion. Don't waste it. Ryan closed his eyes and whispered softly, "I'm ready." From that moment, he knew that the chains of the past only break when you do something today to make the future better. The next morning, Ryan headed to school as usual, but today the air felt strange. Dark clouds loomed overhead, and the wind seemed restless, as if nature itself wanted to deliver a message. During class, Ryan suddenly heard the same mysterious whisper. This time the voice wasn't soft, it was deep and urgent. "Ryan, time is running out. If you don't act today, there will be a great loss." A chill ran through his body. He looked around, but everything seemed normal. The other kids had no idea what terrifying words were ringing in Ryan's ears. At recess, as Ryan walked out of the school gate, something caught his eye. Out in the field, a kid was chasing after a football, and nearby, an old electric pole was shaking dangerously in the wind. A flash of vision struck Ryan's mind. He saw the pole falling, people screaming, chaos everywhere, and the boy getting hurt. Ryan's heartbeat quickened. Is this the danger I was warned about? Without wasting a second, he ran as fast as he could. He shouted, but his voice was faint against the wind. Waving his hands, he signaled for the boy to stop, and just as the boy froze, the pole crashed to the ground. The loud bang echoed and people came running, but inside Ryan there was only a heavy silence. He felt as though time had tested him once again, and this time he had passed. But with that relief came a new fear. What if I had been late? What if something like this happens tomorrow and I can't get there in time? This question weighed heavily on his heart. Ryan realized that this wasn't just a sign, it was a warning. Future dangers would come again and again, and he had to be ready every single time. That night, Ryan stayed awake for a long time. Staring at the stormy sky outside his window, he made a promise to himself. I won't just dream anymore, I will act, because maybe someone's life depends on my courage. This moment became the second great turning point of his life. For Ryan, this was no longer just a strange experience. The future was calling him, and now he could no longer ignore it. The next day at school, everything seemed normal, but inside Ryan there was a storm. He still hadn't gotten over what had happened yesterday. Everything around him now felt deeper, more mysterious. Just then, his close friend Noah came over. Noah was usually cheerful and full of jokes, but today there was a strange seriousness on his face. Ryan, I need to talk to you, Noah said quietly. Ryan looked at him, surprised. What happened? Noah glanced around to make sure no one was listening, then said softly, Why did you suddenly run into the field yesterday? How did you know the pole was going to fall? Ryan's heart skipped a beat. You saw me? Noah nodded, then said the words that shocked Ryan completely. I hear the whispers too, Ryan. Ryan felt as if his feet were glued to the ground. What? You too? Noah gave a small, knowing smile. Yes, and this isn't the first time? I've been hearing them for weeks, but I never had the courage to tell anyone. I thought maybe I was going crazy. But when you saved that kid yesterday, I knew for sure. We were both given this ability. Ryan went completely silent. For the first time, he felt he wasn't alone in this. Noah continued, Ryan, this isn't something ordinary. Whatever we're hearing, it's for a reason. Maybe we should work together. You and me, we can try to understand these signs. Ryan felt a strange stirring in his chest. This burden was no longer just his to carry. Now there was someone standing beside him. That evening, the two friends sat in an old park after school and made a pact. Whenever either of them heard a whisper, they would tell the other immediately. They were no longer just friends, they had become partners in a secret. But deep down, one question still lingered in Ryan's heart. Are we really ready to hear everything that's coming? A few days after this event, Ryan and Noah's lives had completely changed. Now both friends were more serious and more careful every single day. They knew that every new whisper was a sign, a test, and maybe a chance to save a life. One evening, as they were walking home from school, Ryan suddenly heard that familiar whisper again. But this time, the voice was louder, almost like someone was shouting, Stop it! Stop it! Ryan froze. Noah immediately knew something was about to happen. What is it? He asked quickly. Ryan looked around and said quietly, Something bad is about to happen. We need to hurry. Both of them ran in the direction of the voice and finally reached the center of the town. There they saw a little boy who had been playing with a ball run into the street, and a speeding truck was heading straight toward him. It felt like time had stopped. Ryan's heart was beating fast. He knew if he ran forward, he would put himself in danger, but if he didn't, the boy might be gone forever. Noah, we have to do something, Ryan shouted. Noah grabbed Ryan's hand and said, I'll try to stop the truck driver. You grab the kid. At that moment, both friends forgot about their own happiness and their own safety. Ryan ran with all his strength and at the very last moment grabbed the boy in his arms and pulled him out of the street. The truck screeched to a stop, barely missing them. Everyone was shocked. No one had seen how difficult and dangerous it had been. The boy was safe, but Ryan's knees were hurt and Noah had fallen to the ground while waving to stop the truck. Later, when they were sitting at home, Ryan's eyes were full of tears. "Noah, we risked our lives today." Noah smiled and said, "Yes, and maybe this was our first sacrifice." After that day, both of them realized that this ability was not just a game. It was a responsibility that might ask them to give up their happiness, their safety, and sometimes even their freedom. This was the first time they truly understood what it meant to sacrifice for a greater purpose. This was the moment when their real story began. After their first sacrifice, Ryan and Noah felt a new kind of confidence in their hearts. They started to believe they could change the world, that they could stop any danger. But life is not always easy. A few weeks later, something happened that shook their courage. That day, the weather was strange. Dark, heavy clouds covered the sky. Ryan heard the whisper again, but this time it was faint and full of pain. Almost like someone was crying, "Hurry, before it's too late." Ryan and Noah immediately ran toward the other side of town. When they reached there, they saw an old warehouse on fire. People were shouting, throwing water, but the fire was spreading fast. Ryan felt his heart race as the whisper grew louder. It sounded like someone was trapped inside. Noah grabbed Ryan's hand and said, "This is too dangerous. If you go inside, you might not make it out." Ryan replied firmly, "We already made our first sacrifice. We can't stop now." Both friends ran into the flames. The smoke was so thick it was hard to breathe. In one corner they saw an old woman lying unconscious. Noah lifted her up and together they struggled to find a way out. But just as they were about to escape, the warehouse roof started to collapse. A huge wooden beam fell, blocking Ryan's way. Noah and the others made it out, but Ryan was still trapped inside. People screamed. Fear filled Noah's face. He tried to go back in, but the fire and smoke were too strong. For a moment it felt like everything was over. Noah dropped to the ground, tears rolling down his cheeks. He thought he had just lost his closest friend. Then suddenly a shadow appeared through the smoke. Ryan stumbled out, badly injured, his clothes burned and his arm bleeding. But he was alive, and in his arms was the old woman. People cheered, but Ryan collapsed on the ground. At that moment, both friends realized that their courage and strength also had limits. They could not control everything. That night, Noah looked up at the sky and asked, "What if one day we can't save someone?" Ryan answered softly, "Then we'll still try, because that's our responsibility." This was the moment they truly understood how dangerous and difficult their journey was. This dark moment became a lesson for them that bravery isn't just about winning, it's about continuing to try, even when you fail. The warehouse incident had passed, but its impact stayed with both Ryan and Noah. Ryan remained injured for several days, with bandages on his arm and burn marks still visible on his face. He had become unusually quiet. Noah, too, was broken inside. For the first time, he truly felt the fear that their mission might one day cost them their lives. People from the village came to thank them, praise them, but Ryan felt an emptiness in his heart. He started to wonder if this was all too much for him to handle. One night, he sat alone at the edge of the village, staring at the waves of the sea. The air was cool and heavy with silence. Then he heard the whisper again. This time the voice was soft and calm, like a mother comforting her child. "Darkness doesn't last forever. If you rise again, the path will light up." Ryan took a deep breath and looked up at the sky. The stars were shining, as if they too were giving him hope. In his heart, he said, "I will not give up." The next morning, Ryan went to Noah's house. Noah was still sitting in despair. Ryan held his hand and said, "Yes, we were afraid. But did we think we would make it out alive when we entered that warehouse? No, yet we went in. Because we knew if we didn't, no one else would. Now we have to do the same thing again." Noah looked into Ryan's eyes. The light that had faded since the accident was shining in them once more. Noah smiled and said, "Then let's go. Whatever the next test is, we will face it together." From that day on, they began training again. Ryan kept working hard despite his injuries. He became more careful, more thoughtful. Noah overcame his fear and supported Ryan in every way possible. This moment was a new beginning for both of them. They learned that failures and accidents are not the end. They prepare you for the next step. The villagers no longer just saw them as brave boys, but as leaders with strong hearts. This ray of hope not only brought light back into their lives, but inspired others too. People began to say, if Ryan and Noah can rise again, then we can fight our struggles too. This was a turning point in their story. They were no longer just reacting to life, they were now creating their own path. After the ray of hope, a new life had come into the village. Ryan and Noah had started taking their mission even more seriously after the warehouse incident. The villagers had also begun to trust them more. But after light, darkness always comes, and now the darkness was near. A few days later, a stranger arrived in the village. He was tall, sharp-eyed, and always wore a black hat. He didn't talk much, but he observed everything carefully. At first, no one paid attention, but Ryan began to feel a strange uneasiness. One night, Ryan heard the whisper again, but this time the voice was sharp and full of warning. The enemy is near. He wants to break your trust. The next day, strange rumors started spreading in the village. People began saying that Ryan and Noah were actually a danger to the village, that they put others in harm's way just to save themselves. Ryan was shocked because no one had actually seen such a thing. These were just whispers, no proof. Noah started investigating and soon discovered that all these rumors were started by that same stranger. His name was Mark and he was an old enemy. Years ago, Mark's father had tried to take the village land and Ryan's father had stopped him and had him arrested. Now Mark had returned to take revenge. Mark not only tried to turn the villagers against Ryan, but also tried to learn Ryan and Noah's next moves. He secretly followed them, listened to their conversations, and twisted their words to make them sound guilty to others. One night, Ryan caught him outside his house. Ryan said sharply, "Who are you and why are you doing this?" Mark smirked and replied, "I am the one who will show everyone that you are no hero. You're just an ordinary boy who is about to become a problem for this village." Ryan's blood boiled, but Noah stopped him. "This is not the time to fight. We have to play smart." Now Ryan and Noah had to fight not only for their mission, but also for their reputation. They had to prove to everyone that they were not the enemies of the village, but its protectors. Mark's arrival brought a new twist to the story. The villagers began to split. Some stood with Ryan, while others started believing Mark's words. This became Ryan's biggest test yet. Could he expose Mark's plot through truth, or would the villagers keep doubting him forever? During Mark's schemes, Ryan's life became even more complicated. Now, not only was the trust of the village at stake, his heart was being tested too. There was someone very special in Ryan's life, Emma. Emma was the bravest and most fearless girl in the village. She always stood by Ryan and encouraged him. But now, when the villagers had started doubting Ryan, Emma was caught in the middle. Her own family told her to stay away from Ryan or she would get into trouble too. One evening, as the sun was setting, Ryan and Emma sat by the river. Emma softly said, "Ryan, I believe in you, but my family, they say our name is being ruined because of you. I have to decide whether to stand with you or with them." Ryan stayed quiet. His heart wanted to say, "Stay with me, I'll make everything right." But he knew this was not the time to be led by emotions. He took a deep breath and said, "Emma, I won't force you to stay by my side. But I want your choice to be your own, not one made out of fear or pressure. I cannot abandon my duty. I have to save the village." Tears filled Emma's eyes, but she nodded. "I know what you have to do, and maybe this is the time for me to test my own heart." This was the hardest moment for Ryan. For the first time, he realized that love sometimes demands the greatest sacrifice, putting your feelings aside for a bigger purpose. The next day, Emma stood before everyone and said, "I believe in Ryan, and I will stand with him no matter what." This was Emma's bravest act, and for Ryan, it became his greatest strength. But Mark was watching. He made up his mind that he would not just break Ryan, he would try to break Ryan's heart too. Now even love had become a weakness that Mark planned to use for his own gain. Emma's decision had strengthened Ryan's heart, but Mark's schemes were far from over. One night, the village elder came running to Ryan, fear written all over his face. "Ryan!" the elder panted. "Mark has planned to set fire to the village grain warehouse. If we don't act before morning, the entire harvest will be gone, and the village will starve." Ryan froze as the words hit him like a blow. This was the grain the whole village had worked for all year. If it was destroyed, the entire community would face ruin. Ryan made a decision instantly. There was no time to waste. It felt as if the clock's hands had started racing. He gathered a few trusted friends and said, "We only have tonight. We must stop Mark's men, protect the warehouse, and expose his crime to everyone." Rain poured down, darkness wrapped the village, but Ryan and his friends did not stop. They sprinted across muddy paths, lit torches, and took every shortcut they could to reach the warehouse. When they got close, Mark's men were already there. For a moment, it felt like everything was over, but Ryan summoned every ounce of his strength and silently ambushed them, taking them down one by one. Emma arrived too, bringing the rest of the villagers with her. Soon, a crowd had gathered. When everyone saw Mark's men, they shouted and caught them red-handed. For Ryan, this was a matter of life and death. Every second counted, and he had won the race against time. The warehouse and the grain were saved, and for the first time, the villagers openly recognized Ryan's courage. A wave of relief swept through Ryan's heart, but he knew this was just the first round. Mark would now become even more dangerous. After saving the village harvest, Ryan felt a weight lift off his shoulders, but deep down, he knew Mark would not give up so easily. That night, while everyone was celebrating, Ryan sat alone at the edge of the village, lost in thoughts about the future. The rain had stopped, but the ground was still wet and muddy. In the distance, footsteps echoed through the quiet night. Ryan turned sharply. A stranger was slowly approaching him. The man was middle-aged, his face streaked with rain and mud, but there was a strange light in his eyes. "You're Ryan, right?" the stranger asked softly. Ryan nodded cautiously. "Who are you?" The stranger gave a faint smile. "My name is Dane. I used to be one of Mark's closest allies, but when I realized he was determined to destroy this village, I walked away. I know what he's planning next. If you want, I can help you stop him." Ryan stared at the man in shock. This was the kind of moment that could change everything. He hesitated. Could he really trust this stranger? But there was truth in Dane's eyes, and Ryan knew that refusing this help might put the village in danger again. "You have to trust my plan," Dane said firmly. "Next month, Mark is preparing something big. He wants to cut off all the village's water supply so that people give up out of desperation. If we prepare ahead of time, we can stop him and expose him in front of everyone." For the first time, Ryan felt he wasn't alone. There was someone who knew Mark from the inside and had chosen to stand by him at the right moment. Ryan gripped Dane's hand firmly and said, "We will win this fight, but we must be careful." This unexpected help became a new source of strength for Ryan. No matter how dangerous the coming days would be, he now knew he would not face them alone. Night had fallen over the village once again. Everyone was asleep, but Ryan sat wide awake, staring into the darkness. Dane's plan was good. There was still time to act, but Ryan's heart felt restless, as if something was pulling him toward an unseen danger. And then it happened. That same mysterious voice spoke again, the one that had first warned Ryan about the future. But this time it was sharper, clearer, and far more urgent than ever before. "Ryan, time is running out. If you don't make your move in the coming days, the village's water will be lost forever. Your people trust you. But remember, even the smallest mistake this time will destroy everything." A chill ran through Ryan's entire body. For the first time, the voice didn't just guide him, it scared him. This wasn't advice anymore. It was a warning, a final warning. Ryan jumped up and rushed to his door, peering outside. The village was silent, eerily still. But far away, on the horizon, a strange red glow flickered in the sky, like a signal of something terrible approaching. The next morning, Ryan called Dane and told him everything. Dane listened quietly, then took a deep breath. "This means Mark is going to act sooner than we thought," he said gravely. "We can't wait. We finished the preparations tonight. This is no longer just a plan, it's survival." Ryan gathered the few people he trusted most. For the first time, they saw him look truly serious, almost fierce. He stood before them and said, "This is our last chance. Either we save our village tonight, or this place will be gone forever." Fear flickered in their eyes, but Ryan's words sparked something inside them, courage. They knew this was no longer just Ryan's fight. This was about all of them, their families, their homes, their future. That night, the entire village seemed to hold its breath. The air was unnaturally quiet, as though even the wind was waiting for what was about to come. And Ryan made a silent promise to himself. This final warning would not be the end. It would be the beginning, the start of the fight that would decide everything. The night had grown deep, clouds covered the sky, and there was a strange heaviness in the air. Ryan had gathered all the brave men and women of the village in a secret place. Dane was there too. Everyone's faces showed both fear and hope. They all knew tonight would change everything. Ryan looked at everyone and said in a strong voice, "This night is decisive. By tomorrow morning, either we save our village or it all ends. There's no turning back." Everyone nodded, but a strange silence filled the place. Dane stepped forward and said, "Mark's men will come from the west. We have to face them there. Ryan, you must do what the whispers of the future told you." Ryan's heartbeat quickened. He suddenly remembered the mysterious voice that had given him a final warning. "One wrong step from you will end everything." The villagers began their preparations. Some filled water pots in case fire was set. Others gathered strong wooden sticks and old weapons. The women prepared food and water so everyone could stay awake through the night. Ryan sat alone in a corner. Memories of his childhood came rushing back. The days he would sit at the edge of the village, staring at the sea. The day he first heard that whisper. So much had changed since then. Dane came and sat beside him. "Don't be afraid, Ryan. You know what you have to do. You've always sacrificed for others. Tonight, you just need to listen to your heart." Ryan lifted his head and gave a small smile. "If we lose tonight, my village will be gone. I won't let that happen." At 11 o'clock, a noise was heard in the distance. Mark's men were coming. The guards at the gates lit their torches. Dane signaled everyone, and they took their positions. Mark and his riders reached the village gate. Mark shouted loudly, "Ryan, I give you one last chance. Leave this land or I'll burn everything down." Ryan stepped forward. In his hand was the wooden stick his grandfather had given him as a boy. He walked with firm steps and shouted back, "Mark, this land is ours. We will not leave it. Tonight we'll decide whether justice wins or tyranny." Mark laughed and gave a signal to his men. Suddenly chaos erupted. Mark's men charged toward the village. The villagers stood firm. There was running and shouting everywhere. Sticks, water, stones. Everything was being used. Ryan moved toward Mark. The two came face to face. "Why don't you understand, Ryan? This land means everything to me," Mark shouted. Ryan replied firmly, "This land is not yours. It belongs to everyone who lives here. If you take one more step, I will not back down." Mark drew his sword and attacked Ryan, but Ryan blocked it with his stick just in time. A fierce fight began between them. The villagers and Mark's men fought too. Dane ordered the gates shut so no one could escape or enter. In the middle of the fight, Ryan once again heard the whisper, "This is the moment. One step will decide everything." Ryan gathered all his courage and pushed Mark back. "Mark, you have one last chance. Leave and never return to this village." Mark stood silent for a moment. There was both anger and defeat in his eyes. Finally, he threw his sword to the ground and said, "This isn't over, Ryan, but for tonight I'm leaving." Mark and his men left the village. The villagers cheered with joy. They hugged Ryan. Tonight had changed everything. Ryan had not only saved the village but also won everyone's hearts with his courage and sacrifice. Peace returned to the night. Happiness spread through the village. Ryan knew this victory was not just his, it belonged to everyone. But deep down he also knew many battles were still ahead. When the first rays of morning fell on the village, there was an unusual silence in the air. After the chaos of the night, this quiet felt strange, as if the earth itself was taking a deep breath. Ryan stood outside his hut. His eyes had not seen sleep, but there was a calm settling in his heart. He knew the decision made last night would be remembered forever. The villagers slowly began to come out. Despite their exhaustion, pride was clear on their faces. Children ran to Ryan and gathered around him. A little boy asked, "Ryan, we really won, didn't we?" Ryan smiled and replied, "Yes, we won, but the real victory is still ahead." Dane came too. His clothes were stained with dirt and blood, but there was a smile on his face. "You did it, Ryan. If it weren't for you, our village might not have survived." Ryan nodded. "This isn't just my victory, Dane. It belongs to all of us. But we have to understand, to protect the future, we need more than fighting. We need change." That was the moment Ryan realized he was no longer just a protector. He had become a leader. He called all the elders of the village and said, "We have to build a village where no man like Mark would ever dare return. We need education, justice and opportunities for everyone." At first, people listened in surprise, then slowly began nodding in agreement. "Ryan is right," an elder said. "We must take this step for the next generation." This decision was about to change everything for the village. Work began that very day. Small schools were built on empty plots. New crops were planted on the old lands, and women and children were included so everyone could help shape a brighter future. Ryan worked tirelessly. During the day, he labored in the fields. In the evening, he taught the children. At night, he sat with the villagers to explain new plans. Dane and the other young men stood by his side. For the first time, it felt like the whole village was dreaming the same dream. A few weeks later, one day Mark returned. But this time, he was alone, and the pride that once filled his face was gone. He said quietly, "Ryan, I didn't come to fight. I have seen how you changed this village. I want to be part of this change too." The villagers were stunned. All eyes turned to Mark. Ryan stayed silent for a few moments, then stepped forward and held Mark's hand. "If you truly wish to change, you are welcome here. But remember, this village now belongs equally to everyone." This truly was the moment that changed everything. Mark, who was once an enemy, became a supporter of the village. He called back his men and even sent food and supplies to the village. The fear that had once gripped everyone's hearts slowly began to fade away. A new era began in the village. Children played freely, women worked with smiles, and men finally slept in peace at night. Ryan often sat quietly at the edge of the village, gazing at the sky. He knew this victory wasn't just for today, it was for the days to come. The mysterious voice returned once more, but this time it was soft and comforting. "You have passed the test, Ryan. You have proven that the future belongs to those who do not fear." Ryan smiled, looked up at the sky and said, "This village will now live in the light forever." Months had passed. The village that was once a symbol of fear and slavery had now become a symbol of life and hope. When the sun rose each morning, the fields were lush and green, the wells were full of water, and children ran to school laughing. The same village, whose people once wore faces of despair, now shone with smiles. Ryan stood in the center of the village, taking it all in. He remembered how, just a few months ago, this land was barren. The people were exhausted and silent. and fear of the enemy had crushed their spirits. But today, everything had changed. He took a deep breath and realized that the fragrance in the air was not just of the soil, it was the fragrance of hope. The villagers no longer saw Ryan as just a protector, they saw him as their leader. Whenever a problem arose, he was the first person they turned to. But Ryan never considered himself a king or ruler. He always told them, "This is your victory, your hard work, I only showed you the way." One day, visitors arrived from outside, people from nearby villages who had come to see the change for themselves. They walked through the streets, saw children studying in schools, and men and women working side by side in the fields. There was amazement in their eyes. "This is the same place that used to live under Mark's shadow," one of them asked. "Yes," another replied. "But now even the air feels different here." Word began to spread. More people from other villages started coming, eager to learn how this transformation had happened. Ryan welcomed them all and said, "We turned fear into hope, hatred into cooperation. You can do it too, but only if everyone works together." Slowly other villages began to change as well. Ryan and Dane often traveled to nearby places, helping them set up systems, sending teachers to educate children, and creating plans for better food and water management. It was like a small revolution spreading across the land. Mark, who was once everyone's greatest enemy, had now become one of their biggest allies. He used his old power and resources to help the people. Many were amazed at how a man could change so completely, but Ryan always said, anyone can change if they are given a second chance. One day a festival was held in the village. Everyone gathered together. Children played, women sang, and the men discussed plans for the next harvest. Ryan was called to the center. An elder said, "Today we are not just celebrating the survival of our village, we are celebrating the day we left fear behind and took our future into our own hands." Ryan stepped forward and said, "It's not just our village that has changed, the whole world has changed. Today we have proven that we can write our own destiny." The crowd rose to their feet and clapped loudly. The children began to dance with joy. It felt as though even the sky was celebrating as the clouds parted and sunlight spread across the village. That night, after the celebration ended, Ryan once again sat at the edge of the village. He looked up at the sky and softly said, "This is the world I had seen. Now it is no longer a dream, it is reality." The mysterious voice spoke one last time. "You have shown the world that the future can be changed. Your test is over, but this is only the beginning." Ryan smiled and bowed his head. He now knew that his story was not ending. It was the beginning of a new journey, a journey to build a world where everyone could own their destiny. The villagers had gathered in the center of the village. Evening was falling and the sky glowed orange as if nature itself wanted to make this moment special. Everyone stood in silence because today something important was about to happen. Ryan stood in front of them, but his heart was racing. He was the same person who once sat alone at the edge of the village, fighting his fears, doubting his own abilities, thinking he was just an ordinary boy. But today everyone looked at him as if he was a hero from a story. The village elder stepped forward and announced, "Today we honor the man who changed our lives. The one who not only saved our village, but taught us that we are the owners of our own destiny." The villagers clapped loudly. Ryan was surprised. He had never dreamed of fame. He only wanted to do his duty. But now he could see that this was not just his victory, and it was everyone's victory. Dane stepped forward and placed a hand on Ryan's shoulder. "My friend, you showed us that even silence has power. You gave us courage when we were breaking apart. You did what no one else could do." Mark also came forward, the man who was once the enemy. He looked at Ryan and said, "I was your greatest opponent, but you changed my heart. You made me human again. Today I consider you my teacher." Ryan's eyes filled with tears. He knew this moment was not just about him, but about the change that had taken root in everyone's hearts. The children stepped forward and formed a circle around Ryan. One of them said, "We have only seen heroes in stories, but now we know what a real hero is." That one line left Ryan speechless. He finally understood who he really was, the hero who had become an example for everyone, the hero who had changed the world without making noise. The villagers placed a memorial stone in the center with an inscription. "This is the place where a silent hero gave us hope." Ryan touched the stone, took a deep breath, and looked up at the sky. It felt as though the mysterious voice he had once heard was smiling at him now. That night, when everyone had gone back to their homes, Ryan sat alone and thought, "I never imagined this journey would bring me here. But maybe a true hero isn't the one who is the strongest. It's the one who gives strength to others." He smiled. His purpose in life was now clear. His journey wasn't over. It had only just begun. The morning sun spread its golden light. Ryan stood at the edge of the village, the same place where his journey had begun. The air felt fresh, as if the universe itself was saying this was a new beginning. The celebration from the previous night was over. People had gone back to their homes, but inside Ryan's heart a new storm was rising. This was the moment where life was about to take another turn. Ryan saw his old wooden stick lying on the ground, the same one he carried at the start of his journey. He smiled and said, "You stayed with me, but now I have to move forward." He planted the stick into the ground as if leaving his old life behind. Dan was coming from a distance. He looked at Ryan and said, "Friend, are you really leaving?" Ryan looked at the sky and smiled as he replied, "This village is strong now. It doesn't need me anymore. But out there, many people are still in the dark. I want to be a light of hope for them." Dan put his hand on Ryan's shoulder and said, "We will never forget you. You taught us how to live." The village children came running. One of them asked, "Will you come back?" Ryan knelt down and said, "Maybe one day. But whenever you see light in the sky, know that I am praying for you." He picked up his bag and started walking on the dirt road. The sun had now spread across the whole sky. Ryan's steps were full of confidence. He was no longer the scared boy who once feared his dreams. On the way, he heard that same mysterious whisper he had heard at the beginning of his journey. This time, the voice was soft, as if saying, "This is just the beginning. The real story of your journey is still ahead." Ryan smiled and walked faster. His heart felt light. The burden on his shoulders was gone. He knew he was no longer just one person. He was hope. He was an inspiration. A new day, a new path, a new destination. Ryan's journey was now going to become a guiding light for others. Evening was falling over the village. Golden and orange light spread across the sky, as if nature itself was witnessing the beginning of a new era. People sat quietly listening to Ryan, who stood in the village square. His eyes held the calm that only someone who has faced every storm could have. Ryan took a deep breath and said, "Friends, I have learned life's most valuable lessons. I have learned that time is the greatest wealth. When we waste an opportunity, it never comes back. And decisions, they determine the true direction of our lives." The villagers listened silently. A young man asked, "But how do we know which decision is the right one?" Ryan smiled and pointed to the sky. "Listen to your heart. A decision that harms others can never be right. The decision that brings you inner peace is your path." The elders nodded, and the young people looked at each other as if for the first time understanding the true weight of their life choices. Ryan continued, "I overcame my fears, sacrificed my own happiness, and used my time for a purpose. This is the path everyone should choose, to live life in such a way that when you look back tomorrow, there is no regret." His words echoed in the hearts of the villagers as if everyone silently vowed to use their time and decisions wisely. At that moment, Ryan felt his mission was complete, but he knew this message could not remain limited to the village. It needed to reach everyone who was wasting their time, who was running from their life decisions. Ryan smiled and said, "Remember, time and decisions are life's true treasures. Use them carefully, and that is your real success." Then he fell silent. The air was peaceful, as if the whole universe had confirmed his words. The villagers stayed seated for a long time, as if understanding the meaning of life for the first time. After that day, the village began to change. People started making thoughtful decisions and valuing their time. Ryan's lesson was no longer just one person's experience. It had become a movement. Wow, what an incredible journey! Ryan showed us that courage, unity, and hope can change even the darkest situations. Remember, every small action counts, and each one of us can be a hero in our own way. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Share this story with your loved ones so they can feel inspired too. Thanks for watching, and until next time, keep believing in hope and the power of a brave heart.